And we are live. Thanks everyone for joining. We are now going to the public part of this discussion. Let's do some introductions first. My name is Brian Hughes, and I work for Microsoft doing some Node stuff, and I'm Nebrius on GitHub. Kat?
Hi, my name's Kat. I got Kat Marchan. I am Zcat on GitHub and maybe Cats on Twitter. I am part of the NPM CLI team.
Julie?
Hi, I'm Julie Pagano. I am a dev at Seed, and I do front-endy stuff.
Jonah?
I'm Jonah, and I don't work right now because I'm still in school, but I'm planning to do that fairly soon.
All right, Jeremiah?
Hey, this is Jeremiah Sankpeel, Node.js TSC for Node Source.
All right, and Bo, who is our note taker.
Yes, I'm Bo Gunderson. I work for personalgenomes.org, and I'm taking notes.
All right, so we have several items on the agenda. Before we get started, I'm going to recommend that we switch up the order a little bit. I know we have have continuous translation threads, create a history document, inclusive working group as default moderation team, TSC request for nomination to the TSC, and identify the roles and responsibilities of being a member of this working group. I'm actually going to recommend that we discuss that last point first, identify the roles and responsibilities, because I feel that's the most pressing. Is everyone okay with that?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
So this issue is assigned to Julie. We have a pull request open for that. Julie, would you like to give us kind of a rundown of where that's at right now?
Sure. So one of the big points of discussion in that thread was what the roles should be. Initially, we had members is a clear role that exists, and then we had some discussion about whether there should be a special second role or there should be 3 roles. And I think we've clarified that we basically have members and not members. And not members is basically everybody else who hasn't been kicked out for some reason because they violated the code of conduct. So basically anybody who wants to. And I think we've got some pretty clear kind of guidelines around what responsibilities and permissions are for those 2 groups. Things that are open-ended that I really need feedback on, I think, before it can be completed is what are the guidelines, particularly for membership, around what are expectations of kind of commitment. And based on some of the discussions that we've had and what we've seen in the last few months, I think it should be potentially kind of loose, but I do think we have to have some kind of minimum expectation for people so that if people aren't doing anything, that we can have them go back to being a non-member and open up space for somebody else, because I think we do want to leave membership to some reasonable number. So we have to have some way of gently being like, hey, you haven't done anything for a while, why don't you step down so we can make space for somebody else who wants to participate. But I think we need to figure out kind of what that minimum is, and I need feedback from other people on that. So I don't know if other people have thoughts that you want to discuss now, or if it would be easier to just comment on the PR.
I think it'll be worthwhile to go and discuss now while we have everyone in the room. So my initial thoughts are that I don't think this is something we should specify in terms of like number of hours or things like that. I think we're going to have to think about how we want to define this, but I think it's something that's going to be more case by case, and just also depending on the role of that person in the group. There's some people who are more involved in, like Bo, who's usually our note taker. It's a bigger deal if we lose you for 5 months than someone who doesn't have as much of a defined role. And I don't know if that needs to be codified or not.
Yeah. I mean, if somebody doesn't participate for 5 months, I would expect that they would not be a member anymore. And I know you're being hyperbolic there, but I would expect at least some level of participation on maybe a monthly basis. I don't know if we need to codify it in hours, but I don't know. How do other people feel about that? And I think it's one of those things where somebody's like, I'm going to be on vacation this month, so this month I'm not going to be here. That's a different thing. But in general, I don't know. What do people think?
Maybe we could base something around how many meetings have been attended?
My only worry about that one is that meeting attendance often is hard for some people who maybe can't do stuff during the workday or in a different time zone. Like if we get members who are in time zones where it's the middle of the night right now, I don't want to say that they can't be participating in important members of the group because we had hard times with time zones. So I don't know if maybe we could have a couple different options, like you participate in so many meetings, or you contribute X number of hours a month. Maybe it could be like an either or thing. I don't know.
Would it be worthwhile to, for now, keep it vague so we can get the document landed, and just say, we expect you to be an active participant in the group, and if you're inactive for a long enough period of time, then you're not. Then we may need to consider removing membership. So something along those lines, so that it's not explicitly defined yet, and then we could like file an issue to say codify this stuff.
Okay, yeah, that's well. There's some like vague language in there right now that says if you're not meeting the obligations that you may be asked to step down. So I can kind of soften that a little bit and remove some of the like requirement questions, and then maybe create an issue for discussion of it for future.
Yeah, it sounds good to me as well. As like a temporary guideline.
Kat, any thoughts?
Not in particular. I pretty much agree that we shouldn't be like counting meetings, and I think some people, like myself, just have occasional bursts of activity. So it'd be nice to allow that.
Yeah, I definitely don't want us to make it super prescriptive when we do pick something. I mostly want us to have a gentle way to be like, hey, you're not really productively contributing and haven't been for a while. Let's make space for somebody else.
Yeah.
Something I think dovetails into this is, you're talking about making space for someone else. Do we have a limit on the number of people? I guess one question I'm thinking is, can we get in a situation where having one person in as a member means someone else cannot be a member? And like, what is the process around that? Like, why would that happen?
Yeah, it's an open question. Like, the one thing I do have in here that maybe I should take out is that it listed that our target size for membership was 6 to 12 people, and I think that number came from the general size of other working groups. I feel like that's where that number came from. So
Ashley had also mentioned that she preferred smaller groups because they are more agile and can get things done quicker.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, Bo.
Sorry, I was just gonna add. In our case, though, the small group size that we have now kind of precludes us from getting things done sometimes if we don't have a quorum for meetings and whatnot.
Yeah, it seems like there's a sweet spot somewhere. If we have too few people, we don't get stuff done. I think if we had a huge number of people, it would also be really hard to get stuff done. It's not clear at what size that would be a problem. So maybe it is a thing we should table for a while until we have a better sense of what we think is too many.
I kind of agree, and I think because part of what benefits this working group is having a breadth of perspectives. In that situation, we don't really have that much breadth of perspective right now.
Yeah.
So I think we have some growing to do, and then I think we can manage it once we start growing. We can even like get into some, eventually we can even get into something like cycling through members or whatever. But I don't think this is the time to find solutions to a problem we don't have.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, Kat. I think if the group does get too big, we'll know when we see it, to cite the Supreme Court or whatever on that. And so, deal with it when we get there. We'll definitely know when it becomes a problem, and then that's the point where we can say, okay, we have too many people. Let's look at who's involved, and just go from there. Cool. Any other thoughts on this issue? Were there any other things that you needed clarification on, Jim?
No, I think those are the big ones. I probably won't have time today, but sometime over the weekend I will clean it up based on what we just talked about, and then I'm going to ping the Slack again, and I would like folks to give it a final read sometime next week. so that I can get like approval, and then hopefully we can. So my goal would be to land this by the end of next week. So my goal 1, I will clean it up over the weekend. Goal 2, we will get people to reread it next week. Does that seem reasonable?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
We
Sounds
can
good.
also, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I
Okay.
was about to, yeah. I was about to say we can probably add that to the what do we have? Deliverables, right?
Yeah.
Yes, yes. So deliverables for next week. We'll definitely add that one. So looking at the other issues, real quick, I would like to talk about create a history document 85 that's assigned to me. Is that okay with everyone if we talk about that next?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds
Okay.
good to me.
This one will be short. This was, a document I wrote that was basically the history of the working group. I believe there's a PR open for this as well, and I believe I have addressed everyone's comments. So from my perspective, I think it's ready to land. I just need someone to actually, land it. Or if there's anyone else, is there anyone who has looked over that thinks there's some other things that I should add first? Any objections to landing that?
I was fine when I read it, so.
Yeah, I thought I gave my LGDM, but apparently I didn't. I might do that now.
No objections for me.
And I think there was a few LGTMs. We just need someone to actually, press the merge button.
I can do it real quick.
Okay. So that's technically a deliverable that will be very quick, of course.
Cool.
All right, so those are the 2 with PRs. Then we have 4 other issues that do not have PRs associated with them yet. They're much newer. So one that's been discussed a lot, this may make sense to talk about later, is the continuous translations threads for important discussions. This one, it might be a good idea to wait on this one until we look into new members. There are some new members we are considering that might have some good contributions to add. This does not currently have an owner right now. Do we want to address anything with that for this next 2-week period?
Not in the next. Oh, I just saw Jeremiah's comment. I think this needs to just sit there for a little while longer, actually. Important threads, let's see, additional time burden. Yeah, this needs more discussion. I can assign it to myself, but I don't know when I'll get to like actually doing anything actionable with it.
Yeah, I just feel like attempting to live translate one of these threads, or even like translate afterwards, is just going to be a huge amount of work.
Yeah.
It is, but we do have people that are already doing some of this.
Right.
And it's more about, if I recall when I wrote it, this is a reaction to some of the really big, things like the promises thing. They affect a huge chunk of the community, and finding ways to get input from all these other communities that want to participate that will be massively affected by this, but otherwise don't have a voice. So it would be good to just at least encourage the things that are already going on, I guess.
Are we looking for like more organization around that to try and get the people who are already like sort of doing it to like do it in like a central place or something?
That's one, and the other one is see if we can tap into the existing translation structures and see if anyone also wants to do some of this work. Because we do have like translation teams.
We do, although after the merge, basically once the new website came about, it's no longer the IOGS website, a lot of the people there kind of went absent.
Yep, can confirm from the German team. Huh.
Interesting.
So I'm not sure if that was just people in the original groups didn't have time to retranslate a new website, or yeah, I'm not really entirely sure. Might want to ask Michael about that.
God.
I think we can table this for now and see if we can address it at a later date. I think the current fires currently died off, which was the whole discussion around promises. I don't think it has any urgency to this.
Yeah, I definitely think this is an important thing we should address, but like you said, it's not a fire that needs to put out at this point in time.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing I think we could do, I'm going to recommend that we basically put as a deliverable to talk about this at the next meeting. Does that sound okay with everyone?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so moving on, we then have Inclusivity Working Group as default moderation team. So this is also part of a much larger initiative that also came about from the promises thread. I think this is also about equally as important as these translations, but I think they're both very important, but also sort of big problems that had to be solved. So on this one, I did a little bit of initial work on it, and basically the idea is that we have a code of conduct in place for Node. We have a moderation policy that talks a lot about the what that happens. Certain procedures that need to be followed when moderating, like certain types of people. My feeling is that this document is lacking a lot of how, and I think there's more process that can be put in place, specifically around training people in moderation, knowing who is effective at moderation, and how we select someone to actually perform that moderation. And so that's kind of some things that we want to really codify with this document as well. That's been put to our working group to sort of kind of hammer out some ideas on that, and to also start as serving as the first moderation group. Do people have any thoughts on this? I know everything's been kind of quiet recently, so.
So the idea is that our group would be serving as moderation for a while, or is there a goal of creating a moderation working group? I remember there was some discussion of that, but I lost kind of the thread on it.
It is a bit of an open question. We definitely want to. We definitely want some sort of group. We don't know if that should actually be a working group per se, or some other formation of people. But there definitely will be a group of some sort that can be moderation that will not be this working group and also not be the TSC. But for the time being, to help bootstrap, I think the idea is that this working group would serve as those people.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the very least, we should probably make some sort of recommendation.
Yeah, I like the idea of us making a recommendation and potentially having members of our working group participating in that and us providing guidance. I want to make sure that this working group's full-time job doesn't become moderation, because it can be. Like, moderation can be really time-consuming. And also, I don't want this group to be kind of the people that people get angry at, because it's our job to always be enforcing that stuff. Like, our inclusivity, not necessarily yelling at people or getting people to behave. And so I think we should help, but I don't think it should be our primary responsibility.
So, as a note, I highly doubt the TSC would nominate a specific working group to actually do this. I think if we were to do something, it would probably we'd make a group of people but probably we would appoint people to do that rather than have a working group that expands itself. I'm not sure people like that idea or not, but I figure that's probably what would happen, at least as of discussions of the current time.
I kind of like the what do you call it? The symmetry and checks and balances that you get from having the TSC be the one that finalizes decisions on the code of conduct, having a moderation working group whose sole job is to use that code of conduct as is and act on it, and then having us being a proposal system for improving or changing those codes of conduct and informing them, right? So I kind of like how those three groups would interact if we structured it that way. And I don't think they would need to be completely independent people, but probably with not a lot of overlap.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it.
Agreed.
Okay, so then I think from this discussion, then we could say probably the first thing we should do in regards to this task is to flesh out that structure and relationship and sort of figure out who this group, or make some proposals on who this group should be to the TSC. Sort of start from that angle, and then once we have the basic process, we can start looking for people and fleshing out that group later.
Mm-hmm.
So like process first, people later, as opposed to the other way around.
Yes, I like that.
All right, what are thoughts on deliverables around this issue? Like how much do we want to attempt to do in the next 2 weeks on this? My thoughts is maybe come up with just a sort of high-level proposal of what this looks like.
Yeah, it sounds like what we want is to have a proposal of the system itself with some ideas about where to take it, and then just present that formally to the TSC. With like whatever we would actually need from that. So if we need a separate working group that is its own thing and has certain rules about how it interacts with the TSC and how it interacts with us, then that's something we can include in that document.
All right, sounds good. So a deliverable will be a PR for this document that defines the group and the relationship between them.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Cool.
All right, so just giving a quick time check. We have 6 minutes left. The next issue is the TSC request for a nomination to the TSC. We discussed that earlier, and basically we don't have a specific person yet, but we're going to work over the next 2 weeks to flesh out. So a deliverable for the next time, I'm going to recommend we make a deliverable as have a nominee. Is everyone okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
And Jeremiah, you're going to be assigned to that, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Well, moving on. Okay, so it actually looks like all of the working group operations. There was one more that was listed that's assigned to Rich, but he had to leave early, so we are going to table that for next time. I recommend we take the draft proposal, rotating meeting time, and just put that on the agenda for the next meeting. Is everyone okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I missed that.
So this is issue number 74, draft proposal, rotating meeting time. That's assigned to Rich.
Okay.
So we're just going to put that on the agenda for next meeting.
Cool.
Okay, I believe that's everything on the agenda. Is there anything else anyone would like to bring up? All right, I'll take that as a no. All right, thanks everyone for joining. I think it was a good meeting. And see you all later.
Yep.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.